I remember talking about it, thinking about it. I was involved in the band in high school, and it was a very important part of my life. And I actually remember a phone call with Mr. Pease that I had somewhere in like April, right after I had been admitted, and talking about the band program and talking about the new things that were coming up at the CMB that year. And that played a very significant role in me deciding to come to UVA. And again, particularly as an out-of-stater, there was an out-of-state drum major at the time, and he had, his name was Brian Francica, and he had Brian send me an email, and we talked about what it was like to be an out-of-stater that was in the band. And, in the end, that was a large part of why I was here. My first CFB moment. Um, Again, coming in from Illinois, it was the first time I'd ever traveled by myself. And everything that could have went wrong, went wrong. And I was delayed leaving Chicago. I got to Cincinnati where the plane got the doors closed on me as I'm running to the gate. I spent 8 hours at a Panda Express in the Cincinnati airport because it was the only place that had Wi-Fi. I'm desperately calling Mr. Cook, who I don't even know at this point, like apologizing over myself just to make sure that he knows that I'm sorry. I get there and it's, many hours later than I expected. A gentleman named Kirby Chen came to pick me up, the silent killer in the car, and sat there on the way back to the Doubletree just thinking, this is the worst experience of my life. And I walked into the Doubletree and there was a group of leadership that was getting ready for the next day. And they stopped what they were doing to come and ask me how I was, ask me how everything went. Were, very, very comforting after what was, to me, one of the most harrowing days of eternity. And, I look back on it and I go, I wouldn't have had it any other way. Because even though it's neat, and I got to watch the people walk through the tunnel, to me it was so much more welcoming to have those people come up to me and go, you okay? How is everything? And, I went to bed that night ready for the next day and ready to start college. And that to me is one of my most indelible memories. The reason I decided to try to be a drum major here was I really looked at my skills and my passions, and I thought, where could I best serve the Cavalier band? And I felt that my particular talents are lent towards the administrative aspects of the band as well as in the playing. And I thought that I could help the CMB grow and continue to achieve excellence in that position. And, I don't think it's any different than being a member of the band in any way. It's just you're serving in a different cog in the same machine. And, I was blessed to have a very good group that I was working with. I worked with Hunter Cook and Abby Hyder. And the three of us, I think, got along very well, which I think made the process a lot easier. I don't think there was one person who was necessarily, that's the logistics person and this is the musicality person. I think it all just kind of filled in when the roles were needed. And I think that's part of what I appreciated about the three of us was that it was more of a flexible, adaptable group, which could sort of bend to the situation rather than, well, we need this guy for this thing. Thinking about challenges for the band, my biggest challenge for me was not being here. I studied abroad as a second year in the spring, and I remember thinking before I left, and even in the summer after I got back, about, will I be out of place? Because in the span of college, where life is 4 years long, being gone 8 months is a very long time. And I thought, there was a chance that not necessarily the friends you made, but you spend a lot of time trying to improve in the band and missing hoops band and doing all that. You're like, okay, well maybe I missed out on something. But then to be able to come back in the fall and be back for band camp and to sort of see that the band is continuing to grow and continuing to build, that was something that helped me sort of overcome those worries about it. Some of my favorite memories actually lay not on our field, but when we would go do away games, whether it was going to Maryland or going down into the Carolinas, or even when we went to the bowl game, we were at the down in Atlanta for our bowl game. And I think that those experiences were so neat to be able to see the Virginia band transplant to these areas and just blow away crowds or blow away visitors at the bowl game. And I thought that was always so neat to show that when you're on your own field, you just feel like you're in your element. But then to see us be any other place and continue to amaze crowds, that was something that was really special to me. Down at Scott Stadium, though, I think my favorite memory is of our first game. Just that walking out onto the field for the first time. It was USC. We got cranked in the game. But I remember it was like 90 degrees. You're hot in your coat, and you're standing in the tunnels going, God, this is going to be a long game. Then the minute you come out of those tunnels, it all melted away. And it's still an incredible memory. Well, I think many people think we nap. But no, there was no nap. I think, a big part of what we did was got our act together, whether it was working on conducting, which is sort of our own sectional, or preparing for the next event, whether it be an activity or getting to rehearsals. And that's what I mentioned earlier about, finding your niche and bringing your skills. That was a lot of the administrative work, the stuff that took place while others were getting the musicality part ready. I really liked when we played Get Ready. It was, I can't remember the context of the show that we did it in, but I just remember that was one that kept playing in our heads for about a year and a half afterwards. So I don't know whether it was because of the catchiness or because of the sound on it, but I really enjoyed when we played that one. Of the ones I conducted, we did a Disney show that was really neat. And I remember we did, one of the ones I conducted for that show was Under the Sea. And I remember the set for it was a fish. And we spent a very long time getting the fish to move as a unit rather than have its head break off, and that one stands out in my mind because when it finally came together during the show, just the music was crisp and it matched with the drill, and that's maybe my favorite song that I conducted because of that. I'm a purist. I like the V-Sabers. That's it's a standard, and we don't really do much with it other than get into the set. But I just love, and looking back at pictures of the band, that's one of my favorite things. Well, there was a very personal memory for that. When, as I mentioned, I was a drum major in high school, and the drum major camps that we go to in the Midwest are run, they're called Smith-Walbridge band camps. And Smith is Gary Smith, who is the former director of bands at the University of Illinois. And growing up in Illinois, and my parents went to the U of I, Gary Smith was somebody that was very special to me as a young band student, and going to his camps in high school was always something I looked forward to. I learned a lot there. And at the Chick-fil-A Bowl, Gary Smith was there because he was directing the high school show that came on after us. And I happened to notice while we were doing the practice that he was standing there watching, and I walked up to him afterwards and I introduced myself and I told him that I had attended his camps. And he said, wow, I was just blown away by the Virginia band. And it was very special to me as my final act in marching band in college to sort of bring it full circle and to see him and talk to him was very, very special to me. The good thing about the Virginia band, though, is that the changes are gradual and they're about exceeding and they're about expanding on tradition. I think the most marked change is this beautiful building we're in. And I was lucky enough to be here as a fourth year to watch it open. So, I think in terms of tangible changes, I think I was able to be present for the largest one that's happened yet. But, I think each year, and I still keep touch with some of the people that are in the band, and I can see that it's continuing to happen. It's about exceeding expectations. It's about moving to the next level more so than making marked, stark changes year to year. And I think that's a great thing for a band that's working on building tradition after its first decade. I think the impact of the CMB is very perceptible in my life. I think that from a, not just from a friendly standpoint, but from having the opportunity to interact and to get to know so many people from so many different ranges of opinion, so many different ranges of experience. I don't think there's a single subject where I can't name somebody that I could talk to, or name somebody that I go, okay, this person is smarter than me on that. And I think that's really important going forward. I can think of, even in the last 3 or 4 weeks, new issues with regulations coming out for banks, or whether it's something new in the science field. I know I can call somebody and be able to talk to them about it intelligently and have them give an opinion on it, which, again, in many other organizations, you're not going to have that same breadth. As a drum major, I think that the skills that I was able to hone there will serve me well going forward. Again, being able to interface and interact with many, many different people, whether it be fellow members of the band who are colleagues, whether it be with the directors, whether it be with people. I had a role to play helping get everything ready when the band building had its inauguration. And, that was being able to deal with such a range of people helps me as an aspirant lawyer going forward to be able to interact with clients, interact with colleagues, interact with others going forward. I had a ton of respect for Mr. Inns here. I think he what's the best way to put it? I think it's a compliment to him that so many people call him buddy or call him friend, because I think he was able to toe the line between being somebody who was really approachable as, sort of as a young director, and being somebody who commanded the position of respect that he had. And between Cook and Pease, again, I think one of the things that stood out to me is that there's a penchant among college kids to want to try to personalize somebody who they respect, right? They want him to be their friend, and they want him to be their buddy. And with Pease and Cook in particular, and Idzier to a similar extent, Pease had been their director, and it was very cool to me to see that rather than just sort of being flippant, calling each other by first names during practice, it was always very professional and very businesslike. Mr. Idzier, Mr. Cook, Mr. Pease, calling each other by that. And that was something that I think was picked up by the band and was something that was followed. And I know that it left a great impression on me, was that sort of professionalism that the three of them had, even though they have this personal relationship that they've been, growing for many years. And that was something that has, continues to have an impact on how I approach professional situations.